don't run, but just walk out of the building. Welcome, everybody. This is part of a series of our what we've called Village and Leaders question times. This is actually the second round that we've done, but this is the first one that we've done in Ham and Petersham because it has been a process tied to our overall village planning process, and you've got a developing and a unique situation which we will hear about later with the neighbourhood forum that we are very gladly working with, which allows you to play a very active role in the future of planning Ham and Petersham. We'll hear more about that. But there are two purposes to these question times. The first one is, as tough as it is for us sometimes to hear and be in front of you, we feel that you should have the opportunity to quiz and grill and discuss the leadership of the council on issues that are important to your local area. But it is also very important for us to be hearing the issues as much as we're involved in the council on a daily basis. Nobody knows Ham and Petersham like the residents and like you do. So it's very valuable for us to be hearing the questions and having that discussion with you. So before I proceed, let me just introduce the people who are here. And there are a few people on the front stage, and then a few people in the audience that you should be aware of. Now, going from the far end, Councillor Mark Boyle, who's in charge in the Cabinet of Planning, Housing, Community Safety. A lot of titles, Mark. We'll get them right.
Public health.
And public health. We've got Councillor Pamela Fleming, who's a Cabinet member and Deputy Leader, but Cabinet member for Environment. And we've got myself and Brian. Peter Buckwell, who is in charge of the highways and street scene. We've got Councillor Martin Seymour, who is in charge of planning and strategic development, and Councillor Susan Chappell, who's in charge of children's services and schools. We've also got your three local councillors here. I see Penny Frost, Sarah Tippett, and Jean Loveland. And we've got a number of key officers that are here. Let me just get to it in a second. If you can work that while I say. If they could just make themselves known as David Allister here. David's at the back, in charge of environment and community. Sean Gillen. Sean's there as well. Economic development. Angela. It's Angela. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Angela. Community safety. Anna Sadler. Community links right behind me in the dark here. Is Mandy here? Mandy can't make it, but Mandy Skinner in charge of customers and partnerships. Andrea Kitzberger Smith in planning, and Harriet Steele, village planning. Behind me as well. Sorry, in the dark as well. Okay. Have we got that working now? Okay, right. So just to. Oh, and sorry, David Lynette, exactly, Cabinet member in charge of arts and culture and sport, and Stephen Speak, who is a deputy leader as well, Stephen, who is in charge of, Stephen, many titles here, mixing them all together, who is in charge of our finances, very important. Okay. So just to give you a little bit of history, how this process all started. When we came in 2010, we started a process called the All-in-One Survey, which is asking you and actually asking each area throughout the borough about your priorities, what you wanted to see, what was most important to you. And that started, and at a very high level, the issues that you came back with that were most important came very naturally. In Ham and Petersham, green spaces, local parks and open spaces, the highest priority. Tackling the crime and antisocial behaviour. Public transport, which I know is certainly an issue which we'll talk more about tonight. Library services, very important. And shopping in your local high street. Those were the priorities that came out. Now, as we develop, there is a process which you'll hear more about tonight and we'll discuss, which is neighborhood planning. Now, neighborhood planning, and you've got a team, and I think they've all got orange name tags, so you know who they are in your neighborhood planning team, which has been working together, putting in an enormous amount of work in developing a plan for Ham and Petersham, which ultimately is going to come to the community for you to view and feedback and approve. And that is a plan which captures those priorities and is something that the neighbourhood team together with the council will use in planning going forward, and it needs to be taken into account in planning applications, etc. So it's a very important effort and a very important document, that plan, that we will all use working together moving forward in Ham and Petersham. Now, you'll hear more about that in a second, but the current phase of what we are doing at the council, sorry, it's just delayed, as we're entering sort of what we call our phase 3 of the planning, where the initial neighbourhood planning and the village planning that was done at the council was looking very much in terms of the area, the infrastructure, the planning around it, and it is moving more and more on top of that, together with the community groups, getting people involved and really strengthening the communities, of which this is an important part. And we will be coming out and talking to you more about that, but more and more strengthening that village identity and the relationship that the council has with each of our village communities, rather than taking more of a borough-wide approach. Now, a couple of things you should know about the Village Planning Fund. There is now a planning fund which development brings funds together with it to invest in infrastructure around in the borough and in the immediate area. And we've got a new structure called the Neighbourhood Community Infrastructure Levy. Not a very name that rolls right off the tongue, but you can call it NCIL for short. And the NCIL is something that is made available to the community. The community, you can come and propose uses for that funding, and it gets voted on, which is used as a guide. It's not a binding vote, but used as a guide to help the council decide and work with you in where we can put additional funds so that development goes to improving the community in the way that you want to. Now, we've had the first round of that, and the results of that are going to come out in December, and we will open up the second round in February. But you've had a very, very healthy amount coming out in that, and there's a lot of opportunity in that. So it is a process which will be ongoing and have multiple rounds as development happens. So an important thing to be aware of. Okay. Now, just to set the stage a little bit for some of the questions we've got later, of course, one of the most important things, maybe the most important thing happening in Ham and Petersham at the moment is, of course, the Ham Close redevelopment, which is ongoing. And as I'm sure most of you know, it is about replacement of the existing homes, creation of additional new. There will be additional new properties within the plans, but that's got to be consulted, and we will talk about that. And it also provides the opportunity for re-provision of community services with the youth centre, the clinic, and the little house. Now, the schedule for that current timetable is, at the moment, there is a consultation going on around a bit of the playing field around St. Richard's, which is an enabling part of that. If you haven't seen that, I would encourage you to take a look. RHP is developing their plans, so we expect in the spring of 2018 there to be detailed design consultation. In the summer of 2018, and don't worry, we'll make these slides available to everyone after this. Expected planning application, depending on the results of the process and the consultation. In probably autumn 2018, maybe a little bit before this time next year, we'd be looking for that to go to committee. And then you'd be looking at winter next year, building the technical drawings, and work to commence in summer 2019. That is the general outline in the plans of RHP and the timeline. But of course, they have to go through those gates. There will be a consultation. We'll talk about it tonight, but you will have your say. Now, just to so that you know, if you don't already, about staying informed, there is a website, handclose.co.uk. RHP does hold monthly drop-in sessions in the library, and please go along to those, and sends regular newsletters to its residents. And there is the Ham Close Stakeholder Reference Group, representing local people, and you can see the specific area on the Ham Close website where you can go for more information. And then there are other areas to be aware of, just to be able to get involved more generally and to keep informed. We've got a weekly village newsletter that comes out from the council at the moment. If you're not receiving that already, you can sign up on our website at Village News. There's a community links site for our community links team, which is an area that kind of sees over a lot of different areas of the council, but really reaches out and is that one point of contact. You can go to the community links section on our website. There are various consultations which you can see, and there's also a Talk Richmond section. And then, just making sure it's going, there's also a Ham and Petersham section of the website, and of course we're on Twitter and Facebook. And at that point, we will move over to the Ham and Petersham Neighbourhood Forum. Now, I've got a slide on that, but it's probably best for me to allow you, Brian, to describe what it's all about. If I can pass over to you. Use that or thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So just very quickly, we're going to take about 10 minutes. I'm just going to describe a little bit about the evening, but also say a little bit more about the Neighbourhood Forum. As has already been said, you'll see members of the Neighbourhood Forum around the room. They've got orange badges on with their names on, and we do have a little bit of information there, though some of it is a little bit out of date, I'm sorry to say. Things have moved very fast in the last few months. So we formed the forum in 2013. It's all part of national legislation. And we finally got up the draft plan. Many people in this room have contributed by coming to consultation meetings, and it was considered by the council's cabinet a few days ago and approved, and it's now into another consultation period. It has to go into independent examination as well. I won't go through the I won't go through the details of the plan. You can pick up on any detail if you want to through literature or talking to people, but that is the vision of our Ham and Petersham plan, to retain the identity of Ham and Petersham as a distinct and sustainable mixed residential community set within a semi-rural historic landscape. So I think now you get the slide which introduces me properly. So I've lived in this area for nearly 30 years. I've been chair of the forum for nearly 4 years. My children went to local schools. All the people on the committee, by the way, are all volunteers. We've currently got a committee of about 16 people. It's gone up sometimes, gone down sometimes. Most of the major local groups, Ham and Petersham Association, HAG, UG, are represented on it. Faith groups are there, local businesses are there, and so on. So if I just say a little bit, so we're going to start the questions formally, and I'm sorry, I've left my notes on the table, so I'll go and get them. We will start on the questions very quickly, starting with the pre-submitted questions. We've got quite a few of those, and then it'll be open floor questions. We will finish at 8:45. And just a reminder, the purpose of the evening is to quiz Cabinet members, make views known. The forum is involved in this because we thought it was important to be involved, to get some important messages across, and we're happy to take questions as well. If you want to talk informally to people, that's absolutely fine. It is a long meeting. Toilets, if you haven't yet worked it out, are just down there outside of that door. So I've got one major aim this evening, which is to involve as many as you as possible in this meeting, and to get as many questions and comments as possible as well. So that gives me responsibilities. That is a slide too far. No, you go back. There we go. So I will give every questioner the right of reply to what's been said at least once. So you get the question, you get a response, you get a right of reply. I will try and ask different people to contribute, not the same old faces, and I'll try to give time to issues that matter the most to Ham and Petersham, and try to keep to timings, of course, as well. I'm sure everyone will want to be leaving at 9:15. So on your side, just one or two things to request from you. If you can keep your contributions short, please. That goes for everybody, by the way. Questions should be about Ham and Petersham. And please remember this event is streaming live on Facebook, and people do come in and look on Facebook. You won't be filmed. These people are being filmed, but they can hear everything. And people who are not present can submit questions. So I may get handed a piece of paper occasionally, and I will bring in somebody who's listening in. So if you are speaking, you must use the microphone as if it was an ice cream. Picture, please. There we go. It's no good sort of doing that or anything. It has to be up to the mouth. Also, if you have not signed in, please sign in. There should be a sheet coming round to help. And if you contribute, please say your name. And if you're speaking on behalf of an organisation, please say what the organisation is. A few more general words. I don't like to be complacent. There's lots of issues, but I think this is a good time for Ham and Petersham. I'm sure everybody is very proud. We've been named Best Village in London. In the London and Blue competition. Congratulations to the people involved in that. Yeah. We do have copies of the latest edition of the Ham and Petersham magazine here, which features this, and there's a bit about the forum there. We've only got a few copies here tonight. You will be getting it through your door in the next few days. So look out for that. We're really delighted about not just Grey Court, all the schools in this area doing really great work, and I thought that the Ham Parade market was really quite an extraordinary and a fantastic start as well. So again, just a few more words about the forum. There's a committee of local residents and business owners. Our purpose, to consult with the local community, to draw up a local vision and plan for the area. That's what we've been doing the last 3 years. Very important point indeed. We are independent of the council. Now, obviously, everything that we agree has to be within council guidelines, London guidelines, national guidelines, international guidelines. But within that, we are totally independent. And final point, we are not responsible for Ham Close. That's what RHP, Richmond Housing Partnership, is responsible for that. I'm sure there'll be questions tonight, but sometimes people think that we are responsible for that. The last point there, makes it clear. So the update is the submission version of the plan was approved last Thursday. Okay, so just a quick summary of what happens next. So we've got this further public consultation, and then an independent inspector will be looking at it to check it satisfies the law. There'll be a local referendum, hopefully June, July. Everybody gets to vote, yes or no. We'll be putting out a lot more information on that. And if approved, then it becomes part of the statutory planning framework. So I'm now going to just ask our Vice Chair, Justin Glynn, to come up and say a few additional words as well.
Right. Is that okay? Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Good. Thank you very much, Brian. Just to say, I've been involved in the forum since it started up, really. There was a small group of us that helped form the forum, so it's really good to be still part of it as it progresses through the system. I've lived in Ham for over 10 years. Both my kids went to Greycourt School, so very active part of this community. Why is our neighbourhood plan so special? Well, Ham and Petersham area is unique, as you all know, as residents of Ham and Petersham. No other area in the borough is quite like Ham and Petersham. It has extensive areas of open space and a great variety of different types of open space. I think we're very, very fortunate to have that. We also have Neighbourhood Forum is made up of local people, as Brian said. So if all the members of the planning committee and the drafting team, so the forum committee and the drafting team could stand up so you can see who these people are. They're in the audience. And if you've got any questions, thank you very much. And please feel free to go and speak to them about our neighbourhood plan. Sorry? And the councillors too. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, they're involved as well. Sorry about that, councillors. We've had many consultation events. So just a snippet of what we've actually had. We've had 8 major consultation events on particular topics where we've asked members of the community to come along and talk about what, whether it's travel and transport, whether it's environmental sustainability, whether it's green space. We've had lots of input from the local community on these different topics. We've also had, we've been to Ham Fair since 2014 rather. So every year we've had a stall. We've got people to come along and tell us what they think about the latest stuff that we've got on display there. We've also, if you are a regular reader of the Ham and Petersham magazine, we have regular articles in that, normally a 2-page spread, and that's happened since 2014, but we've had some earlier, in 2013 when we first started, we've also had articles in that. So we've really tried to engage with the community, get the thoughts of the community to make sure that this plan is your plan. At Ham Fair, in the last consultation event, we asked people what 3 words represented Ham and Petersham. And this is a sort of word tree, and the largest words are the ones that people refer to most often. And you can see some of the key words that people thought about Ham and Petersham. So we've got green, friendly, community. So I think it's a really good example of what really the local community think about Ham and Petersham. Okay, this is the submission version of the neighbourhood plan that went to committee and was approved by the cabinet, to take it through to the next draft, to the next stage rather. So this is going to be formally consulted on, as Brian said. We should get a copy of this up on the website pretty soon. So it's quite a large document, so it's taken a while to get it up there. So that should be with you in a week or so. So look out for that. This is village planning funds that the leader mentioned. At the moment we're eligible for 15% of neighbourhood CIL, but when our neighbourhood plan is made, that means it goes through the process, you vote on it, and it becomes a statutory document, then we actually are entitled to 25% of neighbourhood CIL as opposed to 15%. So because we've got a neighbourhood plan, the Ham and Petersham area are entitled to a larger slice of the neighbourhood CIL, which is excellent news. Just so that you're up to speed, and it has been mentioned before, we've got a couple of projects that we've been consulting on and getting people to vote on. That's the Ham and Petersham Sea Scout building, St Andrew's Church Hall refurbishment, and a feasibility study for the cycle route between Kingston and Richmond. And we should hopefully hear mid-December on the results of that, so looking forward to hearing about that. Okay, that's my bit.
Okay. I think sorry. Thank you very much. So we're actually 4 minutes early starting the next part of the evening. The website, by the way, is hamandpetershamforum.org, and we have updated that recently, so have a look at it if you want more information. So we're looking at pre-submitted questions in this part. We've got 45 minutes before we open it up. We have 10 pre-submitted questions. If people aren't here, of course, we can't take their question. Now, 2 of those questions concerned Ham Close, and what I'm proposing to do is to take those questions towards the end of this section, so we can then move into the open session, because I suspect that more people will want to talk about that in particular. So I'm going to start with our first questioner. I'm hoping that Tom Mangold is here. Is Tom Mangold? Yes, how wonderful. So, can we get a mic? Tom, yes, it's coming round. Remember the ice cream.
I just wanted to ask about the condition of Ham Street between Sandy Lane and Ham House. It's in very, very poor condition at the moment. I suspect probably due to the very heavy lorries that deliver to Petersham nurseries, but that stretch of Ham Street really does need a good going over, and I wondered if there were any plans to do that.
So Councillor Buckwell, please.
Thank you very much, Tom. Are we talking about the same road? Are we talking about Church Road down past the church around?
Yeah, I'm talking about Ham Street from Sandy
Lane down to Ham House.
Yes.
Yes, that's what we're talking about. Okay. I couldn't quite see how Petersham Nurseries got involved with that one, but it is a main road down to Ham House, and obviously it needs to be kept in good condition, and we're particularly interested in doing that. At the moment, we're completing an asset survey of all the streets and roads across the borough, and we rank them, and depending upon the condition of them, we decide whether it's a complete resurface or it's a patch job to bring them up to standard. And we will be including Ham Street from just the corner here down to Ham House in that. I'm advised that there's not money being allocated to it this year, although bearing in mind the importance of that road, particularly from the point of view of tourists visiting Ham House, for example, we will look to see if money becomes available to see if we can bring some of the work forward. I can't commit to a total resurface. Officers might advise that we resurface or we patch part of it to bring it up to a reasonable standard. But we will take it into account, and we'll put that into the top of the pile for consideration.
Tom, do you want to come back and say another word?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Anne-Marie Lewis, who I know is here. She's just there.
Please can we understand what the plans are to improve the towpath? Recent improvements along the Petersham stretch of the towpath have been done, but there still desperately needs to be an extension to this from Ham House to Teddington Lock, and also the area of the towpath in front of Petersham Meadows needs to be improved.
Thank you for that. Councillor Fleming.
Yes, indeed, and I gather that I think it's around £50,000 has been allocated from the local implementation fund for some improvements, and this is certainly going to be, they're certainly going to look at doing the stretch from Ham House to Teddington. Now, I know that there were extensive meetings when we did the first stretch along Petersham, because it was actually looking at the right materials and the flooding and all the various issues on that, and I know your ward councillors were quite heavily involved. Now, at that time, that stretch between alongside Petersham Meadows, there were concerns about the impact that there would be on the listed view from the hill. But it is something that I'm quite happy to go back and discuss with officers, but that is one of the reasons. It does have, there are issues about that. So I'll take that back.
Do you want to come back on that?
Just a question on timescales then. Are we looking, is this something for next year or?
Yes, I think that certainly if we're talking about Ham to Ham House car park to Teddington, yes, we would be looking at next year. But I don't want to give any timescale on the other, because I think we'd have to look very carefully at the sort of materials that we use for the other stretch, and I'm pretty sure your ward councils will have quite a lot to say about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. If anybody does want to jump in, by the way, as we are, I think, okay on time at the moment, please do indicate if you want to come in on any of these issues. We have Chris Roos. Oh, hand at the back. Would you like to speak on this issue?
I just feel that paving these areas over detracts from the rural aspect of the whole area. And I think it's quite nice to have the path in like a countryside path.
Interesting perspective. Do you want to say anything, Councillor Fleming?
Well, only that I'm actually quite sympathetic to that point of view, but on the other hand, I know that we do want people to be able to enjoy walking along, and not everybody. You know, it can be quite difficult, particularly if maybe you have some mobility issues. So it's a sort of delicate sort of balance on this, and we need to think about it. But I do think we, as I said, we do need to be very careful on that particular stretch between by the meadows, because that is a very rural stretch. So, you know, I'm generally sympathetic, but we also need to make sure people can access it as well.
Okay, we have another point at the front here.
I have a suggestion for Councillor Fleming, just to perhaps speed things up. The surface, I think that the surface you're concerned about might be the one between the River Lane slipway and Ham House, which is a bit kind of urban, if you like. But perhaps you could go back and ask whoever is concerned to look at the surfaces on the, is it the, how do you pronounce, is it the avenues, basically. You eminently walk on the Great South Avenue. I know a number, I do it myself, and I know a number of people who cycle on those, and that seems to be pretty robust, and it seems to fit in with the historic character of certainly the avenues and possibly the towpath.
We'll certainly look at that, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Propose to move on to the next question. Chris Roos, please. And I was going to ask a question about the community infrastructure levy, which has been mentioned already. Just so it's clear, this is on developers in our area. So the £180,000 which is currently available comes from the area around what was Latchmere prison. So Chris Roos.
The Village Planning Fund accounts for 15% of the community infrastructure levy. What are the Council's plans to invest the remainder of the levy on projects in Ham and Petersham, which have been identified in the Regulation 123 list?
Do you want to just say what the Regulation 123 list is, please?
The community infrastructure levy is something which is paid by developers when they build new buildings, in very simple terms. And the council have to prepare a list saying how they're going to spend that money in order to enable sustainable development.
Thank you. Councillor Fleming?
Yes, well, I mean, the council does actually have a very extensive capital programme plan, and it is currently being reviewed as to see how we can spend that money and prioritise it all around the borough. I can't at the moment indicate any particular proposals for Ham and Petersham, because it is actually being reviewed right now. But it has, as you know, we do use our. We had an extensive programme of uplift and development. I mean, Ham Library actually is one that has benefit. So, I mean, going forward, this will be identified and used. It's important. We're ambitious. We're ambitious with plans to improve all of our borough and our area.
Can I just add, Pamela, we can say that certainly discussion we can have with the forum about the priorities and where that should go. So,
Chris, do you want to come back in?
Well, that was something I was going to ask next, really. In the neighbourhood plan, there is an implementation section in one of the appendices which lists quite a few projects, and I think the forum would be very interested in having discussions with the council about using some of the SIL money to implement some of those proposals.
Yeah, great. Well, that's certainly
yes, that's absolutely right. And you will be hearing, I think it's next week, about the Village Planning Fund projects as well. Yeah, but we want to work with the forum on all of these things. Yeah.
Okay, I'm hoping that Robert Charlesworth is here. He is. Excellent.
It's now more than 52 years since Ham and Petersham left Surrey County. Don't we think it's time that we acknowledge the fact that we are part of London Borough of Richmond upon Thames, and we acknowledge that Ham and Petersham is part of Greater London? I think my council tax gets sent to a Surrey address, and I think the forum acknowledges that this address is in Surrey.
Yeah, so I can. It's certainly before my time that when that decision was made, and I've not known anything different. So I can only agree with you, and very happy to take that up and write to the powers that be if everybody agrees and say it should be changed.
It's an interesting one.
I can't say I can automatically change it. But
any other views on that one? Who would prefer to be in Greater London?
All right. Okay.
Might be different.
Maybe that's something through the forum we can take a view on. I'm happy to take your guidance on it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, quick show of hands, question time style. It would be interesting. This is not binding, obviously. Who thinks we should be in part of Greater London rather than Surrey? Hands up there. Okay. And hands down. And who says no, we should stay in Surrey? I think Surrey just about gets it, but it's a really interesting question. Thank you for that.
Should they not pay their council tax to Surrey County then, rather than the London Borough of Richmond upon Thames?
I could definitely say no to that one, but we can talk about the name. Yes, community discussion about that one. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call Justin Langford, please, sitting over there. It's about air quality, I think.
Hello. There have been three documents released in the last year: the London Borough of Richmond upon Thames Air Quality Action Plan, London Borough of Richmond upon Thames Cycling Strategy, and the Mayor's Transport Strategy. Two of them include targets to increase cycling modal share. The Air Quality Action Plan from 7% in 2014 to 15% in 2026, and the Mayor's Transport Strategy to increase the number of journeys made by foot, cycle or public transport from 64% today to 84% 2041. And the cycling strategy's objectives are to make cycling journeys safer, easier, to develop cycling as an everyday option and to promote cycling as safe, fun and healthy way to travel. Can you tell me what proposals and projects you've identified for our area, Ham and Petersham, to achieve these objectives? And including clarification, this relates to the towpath. In the Air Quality Action Plan, it says there's an ongoing evaluation of the legal position to utilise the towpaths within the borough to provide additional safe walking and cycling routes. Okay. What do you mean by that, and what projects and proposals have you identified for Ham and Petersham?
Thank you very much. Councillor Buckwell.
Well, thank you very much indeed for the question. I'll answer the piece on cycling, if I may, and I'll hand air quality answers across to Councillor Fleming. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we've been doing for cycling in this area, and of course the big one is the cycle quiet way, which comes right the way through Ham. Comes out of Richmond at Ham Gate, down Ham Avenue, crosses over around and down Lock Road, right the way down to Broughton, Hardwick, crosses Riverside, and then it crosses the river at the Teddington Weir there, and goes up Teddington High Street and joins into Bushy Park. And the idea of the whole thing is to connect Richmond Park with Bushy Park with a cycle quiet way, where particularly those who aren't of the lycra brigade, shall I say, can cycle with a certain amount of comfort. It does go through Teddington High Street, and we have had a bit of difficulty there with opposition to that part of the route, but I'm pleased to say that the Ham section has been very well received, and we are proceeding to put that into place, hopefully in the new year. I think that would be a great boost to cycling. Our section of the Quiet Way is part of a network of routes across London, and the idea is that from the centre of London, in various directions, you have these routes where people can cycle with a certain amount of comfort. That's the whole idea of them. And our part of the jigsaw, if you like, is to take the route from Wandsworth, of the Wandsworth boundary, across Richmond Park, down through Ham, across the river, Teddington to Bushy Park. And from there, it gives you the opportunity to join up with the quiet way through Hounslow, and of course you can turn left at Ferry Road and go down into Kingston. It gives you a number of options if you can connect the two parks. And that's our part of the jigsaw. That's Richmond's responsibility. Royal Parks have spent quite a bit of money in Richmond Park already, improving their cycleways to take into account of what will be the quiet way, and our part is to link the two parks, which is what we're going ahead on. That's the big one. That's quite a lot for cyclists. If we can get that done next year, I'll be very pleased, because it's taken a lot of hard work, a lot of design work, and quite a lot of consultation work, particularly the other side of the river, to get that put into place. Other aspects are improving cycle parking. You'll have seen the staples going in around the centre of Ham. We've got a few there, and we will put those in wherever the cycling community feel that they want to improve cycle parking, so they've got somewhere that they can lock their bikes up to. Also, an initiative which we've launched is with cycle hoops, the provision of on-street, safe, secure cycle parking. They look like large bins. Well, that's been unkind to them. They're a little bit more aesthetic than that. They're provided by cycle hoops. We've got 3 in the borough so far. We've got another 7 which are going through planning at the moment, and they are totally lockable. They slide open, you put your bicycle in and close it and key in the code, and that keeps your bike safe. But they are on the road, or next to the road, and they're specifically useful mainly for those residents who live in flats or in houses where parking 2 or 3 bikes in the hallway is a bit of a nuisance and gets in the way, and it provides some safe parking outside the home. Those are 2 of the initiatives, several of the initiatives that we've been putting forward. We of course are trying to push for more people to get on their bikes. We tipped the list of the 33 London boroughs last year of the borough that had the most cycle journeys that began in the borough of all the 33 London boroughs. Hackney were very jealous because Hackney have spent a lot more money than we have on cycleways, partly because they got a Mini Holland grant We weren't successful in obtaining a mini Holland grant. Unfortunately, if we had, we could have done a lot more. But they did. And in spite of that, we topped them on a number of cycle journeys. So we're quite proud of that, and we wanted to continue to develop that. But in order to do it, of course, we've got to make people feel safe on their bikes on the road, and that's what we're trying to do.
Councillor Bowman.
I will take some questions from you.
Well, actually, firstly, the air quality action plan and the consultation, we had some 400 responses. I mean, that's a lot of responses. In fact, Merton, who went out with theirs at much the same time, had just about 150. And amongst those responses, there were a lot from groups that represent large numbers of people. So we are currently, analysing and looking at those, and I haven't actually seen the responses yet, so the details. So we will be coming back with that. They will be published, and from that we'll be making recommendations. But I do know, because I spoke to the officers, that cycling came up in a lot of those, in a lot of the responses. So clearly, from that we'll be looking at various measures. We have, I'm not sure that Councillor Buckwell mentioned also, when he was talking about the extra thing with cycling, is the cycle hub parking at Teddington, which probably is relevant as well a little bit to you in Ham. Now, this question of the towpath, I was hoping actually Councillor Buckwell was going to deal with the towpath bit, because it's complicated in that actually cycling isn't lawful. Cycling is not lawfully permitted on towpaths, parks, common land, because there isn't a cycle track order. And so, but the council a highways department doesn't actually enforce this. So it would be a question of regularising the position, and there is a risk, I suppose, that you would find some people objecting if we tried to regularise this. And the situation is sort of a bit of a no man's land. So I don't know. I will talk to officers about how we pursue this when I've had another look at the consultation responses. I don't know if Councillor Buckwell wants to add anything to that. To that.
We'll take a few questions from the audience, and then we'll come back in. So Justin, first of all, do you want to come back in again first?
Yes, please. I will, and I'd be delighted if it's easier and safer for me to cycle with my child to Teddington High Street, so I can use that for shopping much more readily in the swimming pool as well, which is geographically our closest pool, but not that easy to get to by bike at the moment. But I think in terms of making, anyone who came from Richmond around about 6 o'clock this evening will know that the street was chock-a-block all the way from Richmond to Ham this evening. So I think the other issue for us really is Kingston to Richmond, and that route there, being that there's only one road that does that route from Ham and Petersham. So I think in terms of making another route, although Wandsworth to Teddington is definitely welcome, I think Kingston to Richmond is essential.
Yes. Well,
I'm going to take a few more points from the audience.
I came from Richmond this evening as well.
To respond afterwards, if you don't mind.
Sorry.
Okay, so there are some more hands coming. Take that point first, please.
Hi, I'm David Willis. I've lived in Ham for 35 years. I gather that the new cycle route then from linking the two parks takes in the bridge, and I've certainly seen a few incidents down there, because I gather that part of the implementation of the cycle route means that the no cycling signs mean nothing anymore, and the bylaws do not apply to the bridge because it's now a designated cycle route. I certainly see conflict down there quite often, so I think that's something which needs to be considered. I mean, I think most cyclists are considerate. However, on a shared, very narrow path like that, which is the bridge, I do think about blind, the infirm, children, and just ordinary people like myself.
Okay, there's a couple more questions here, something like that. Yep.
Hi, Chancellor, local resident. Yeah, talking about safety and also the modal shift from cars to bikes and helping that. I was at a public meeting that Councillor Buckwell was at quite recently, and at that meeting you, Councillor, intimated that you would like to support the idea of 20 miles an hour speed limits in residential areas, which is obviously one way of assisting people or encouraging, promoting the use of other forms of transport. Are you still in favour of that general impetus towards 20 miles an hour speed limits?
Okay, again, I'm going to get all these people back. There's one more from the audience before we... Yes, there we are. Thank you. And I'll allow councillors to respond.
Sue Hilton, resident. Just about cycling, one of the things about cycling these days, and I don't know whether councils can do anything about it, is cyclists don't have bells. And you can be walking along the towpath, for example, and suddenly, whoosh, someone overtakes you. Now, you didn't know, because you couldn't hear, that they were coming. And it just seems to me that it's something that's fallen out of fashion. I don't know. But it really should be required of cyclists, especially if they're going to share walkways with pedestrians. And I mean, sometimes, obviously, little children who can sort of run around anywhere. It just seems as though we're asking for trouble.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Councillor Buckwell, if we can keep it brief from the councillors, please. We've got 3 who want to speak.
Yeah, sure. One gentleman mentioned Teddington Weir. Yes, of course, the bridge there is a difficult part of the quiet way. We'd like a new bridge, but I don't think anybody's going to come up with that sort of money. Not there at this time. So in order to get the quiet way in, we have to use the facilities we've got in some parts, and that's one of them. As for mixing cyclists with pedestrians, well, that's always a little bit difficult, and it does, as you say, require a certain amount of tolerance on the part of both parties. 20 mile an hour speed limits, well, 20 mile an hour speed limits, we do put them in, and we are putting them in. As for sort of a blanket view, it has been carried out by neighbouring boroughs. Wandsworth have done it, Hounslow have done it, Hammersmith and Fulham have done it, Kingston have done it in greater in parts. And we have done it in parts. So it is something that's creeping upon us and probably does have to be addressed in a more formal manner in the short term. One thing I'd like to say, and didn't mention, and might be useful to Ham, is dockless bicycles. You'll have heard in the press how the bicycle hire has sort of gone into mass production, if you like, and the companies are now providing bikes which you can leave anywhere. And if you belong to a club, and if you want to look for a bike to hire, you just go onto your app on your phone, and it tells you that in the next road a bike has been left, and you can go and pick it up, and you put in the code. It's all done, located by GPS. And you can pick up a bike, and you can cycle wherever you want to cycle, and then just drop it, and someone else will come along with their app when they want a bike and looking for one in the area and pick it up. And so a network of bicycles for hire develops. Now there are a number of companies that have started doing this. There's Ofo, Mobike, Pony, and 2 or 3 others. And they started by simply dumping bikes on the streets of London, which upset a lot of people and upset local authorities. So 1 or 2 local authorities, one very close to us, a neighbouring one, simply gathered up these things and put them in their pound and said, well, if you want to do this, you better come and talk to us first. Well, we've picked up on that, and we invited the dockless bicycle companies to come and talk to us, and we are making good progress on policy, on how we might manage such a scheme, the various things you can do to manage what's, to begin with, seems rather unmanageable. It needn't be. We are hoping that we can work with one or two of those companies and possibly work out a trial. It could be very useful, particularly to an area like this, which doesn't have a lot of public transport, and it would help with active travel. I think it is probably the future of bicycle hire. The old approach where you have the Santander docking stations, large ranks of them in various parts of a borough, and you have to pick them up and put them back. I think that is probably a thing of the past. I think that the dockless bicycle is the way it will go, and we have means and policies being developed to handle that.
Councillor Fleming?
No, I don't really think I've got anything very much to add. Yeah.
Can I'll just make a few additional points. Thank you for that. I think we've covered on a lot of it. But just to say, I mean, I did come from Twickenham tonight and through Richmond on my bike. So there are cyclists among us. I cycle everywhere in the borough. I know Jean is a big, in fact, she came from Fontainebleau very recently, did a very long journey. So we do understand the areas where it is difficult, even as a confident adult, to be cycling. There were certainly those parts tonight, and Peter and I talk about it quite often. We do want to continue to promote and improve cycling in facilities for cyclists and get more people on bikes within the borough, because it's part of experiencing a beautiful borough. So that is a priority for us. I think the point on working with Kingston is a very good one. It's very easy within the council to try to solve things only within your own boundaries, and we do work with Kingston. So I think that is something that we can take up. And the one on the bells is interesting as well, because I'm both on my bike and I walk the towpaths. There is a point when you get a little bit of annoyed at people ringing their bells as if you've got to get out of the way for them. So that, I guess we've got to be working with the liaison groups and cyclists to figure out what is the right way to indicate and to share those spaces.
Justin, do you want a last word? Quick last word? No, it's okay. Okay, I'm going to go on to a related topic. Sorry, Councillor Lynette, very quickly, please.
Thank you, David Lynette. I'm a councillor for Kew. It's just a small point, but we've got a long towpath running through my ward. Where you've got mixed mode of cycling and pedestrians, could I please make a plea, a request for standard signage that has the pedestrian above the cyclists? Because aggressive cyclists use that as an arguing point when they get into trouble with people on the
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the claps.
We've got a related transport point from Andre Fries, please. Where's Andre? There she is.
Thank you. I will just ask my question in a minute, but on the point of bells and cyclists, as a cyclist myself, the number of times I'm told off for ringing my bell by pedestrians who don't want my bell rung at them to warn them is quite large. And the other one obviously is dogs, with people and dogs, and they call their dogs when they see the cycle coming, at which point the dog runs in front of my front wheel, knocking me off my bike. So there are issues on both sides, and I think just civility from all sides. But I will ask my question.
Thank you very much.
So, yes, Ham currently has one of the highest car usage rates in London, partly due to the scarcity of public transport. What is the council proposing to do to ease the congestion on roads from Ham to Richmond, Kingston, beyond, particularly with the additional dwellings that the redevelopment of Ham Close will create, given that the designs include parking for one car per property? I know we have covered off the issue of what the council is doing to try and encourage cycling and walking, but what are they trying to do in terms of the bus services that we have and to improve those? Thank you.
And we're coming to Ham Close in a minute as well. So, Councillor Butler.
Thank you very much indeed, yes. I'll leave Ham Close for others to talk about, and I know that I understand an increase in the number of properties there. That doesn't necessarily mean, of course, that there are going to be a lot more cars. It depends upon the modes of... I will leave Ham closed to others. Okay. We've been talking to TfL we talk to TfL quite regularly about the bus routes across the borough. And one of the ones we bring up quite regularly is extending the K5 a little bit further into Ham, and also the service that's provided between Richmond and Kingston on the Surrey side of the river. TfL are unfortunately very difficult to move, so we have a policy of drip feeding this. We have a number of other bus services which we want to see changed across the borough. We want to see the 22 brought into Barnes. We want to see the 110 changed so that it can take into Witten High Street. We would like to see a direct route between Kingston and Richmond on the Middlesex side of the river, rather than the changing that has to go on in Teddington High Street, etc. There are many of them. And so we present our shopping list to TfL quite regularly, and we have one-to-one meetings with them, and we keep on pushing these issues. They are very reticent. They do hold us back. They always come to the meetings, and they're always very receptive and open, etc. And they start by talking about a general view of the area. This is the way the conversation goes, and it ends up with us all going round in a circle, and they go back to their offices and we go back to ours, and we look at each other and say, well, what did we achieve there? And, well, hopefully, over time, we do achieve something. They do, from time to time, review the service that they provide in a certain area. At the moment, they've been changing and reducing some of the services in the centre of London and increasing and extending those to the outer boroughs. So it does move, but it moves very slowly. We're always on the case with TfL, in the same way as we are with National Rail, Network Rail, and also South Western Railways. So I can assure you, we keep on pushing this issue of the transport provision for our borough, and particularly areas like Ham. But it is a very slow process, I'm sorry.
Andre, do you want to come back?
No, I think that's a fair little answer, thank you.
Take one or two. Do you want to speak? There's a hand up there, please.
Thank you. Anybody who was in a car tonight experienced 2 miles took half an hour. When we had those pointless traffic lights in the centre by Russell School a few weeks ago, no roadworks at all, it took an hour to travel 2 miles, which I was really annoyed about. Surely the logic is, until you can fix the traffic congestion around Ham, you stop all further development in the area until you can fix it.
I'm going to call the councillor back in a minute. Any other points that want to be made at this point? Okay. Councillor Hodges, John, quick word.
Well, I guess just on behalf of Peter, I guess I would say I'd love to be able to do that. And I don't know if you've seen, we've got tremendous pressure on us from the moment, both from the mayor and the government, for increased housing over the next 10 years. And I don't see enough coordination between the thinking on the additional housing that they're saying is needed and transport and other facilities, which we are pushing back hard on at the moment. But we are certainly, Peter talked about the challenges of dealing with TfL on individual bits. We are going to them and saying, look, we need to take more of an area view of all of the different modes of transport, not only Ham and Petersham, but across the borough as well. Not only to improve flow as it is now, but if more housing, and I think the housing numbers that they're talking about are unrealistic, and that's a separate discussion, but there will be more housing, more than Ham Close, more than other major developments. We've got to look at how we improve the coordinated transport of public transport and the flows through the borough, and we are engaging and pushing it. It's not easy, but engaging with TfL in order to take that area view. And you're right, they've got to be sorted out. They can't just be left and a little bit of tinkering here. And it may take some radical change in terms of how roads work in certain areas in order to get that flow going. But we recognise that. We're looking at that ourselves and proposing that and working with TfL, but it's got to be done on an area basis. You're right. I'd love to say to them, we can't have any more until you figure this out. That's not going to happen, although we will try to push back on that as much as possible, but we are working with them on a regional basis on how to improve things.
We're getting a little short of time. I want to push it on. I'm sure we're going to come up again. Very quickly, please, take the point. Is it on? It's on this issue, is it? Yeah.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. When these roadworks or non-existent roadworks happen on Petersham Road, is there any possibility that the stretch of Richmond Park could be opened up in such a vital artery and there's no other way through? Would that be a possibility?
Thank you very much. Could you just give your name, please?
Daniel Pearthorpe, local resident.
Councillor Buckworth.
Sorry, you asked whether
when Richmond Road and Petersham Corner is closed for roadworks, could Richmond Park be opened up as an alternative way through?
Throughout the night, you mean? Because it is open throughout the day.
No, through the night as well.
Through the night. I can't answer that question, unfortunately, because of course it is Royal Parks. They've always had the policy of closing the park at night because of the deer, of course, and accidents that can occur with deer being mesmerised in the headlights of vehicles and racing across the road in front of vehicles. It sometimes happens during the day, but at night time I'm told it would be considerably worse, and that's why the Royal Parks will not open Richmond Park at night. So I can't really answer that question. I'll give you any assurances on that. I would like just to quickly, and I'll finish it, car clubs. The rest of the borough has car clubs and cars in parking bays, the part of car clubs, but Ham doesn't for some reason. And we went to the car club operators, Enterprise and Zipcar, and said, why have you nothing in Ham? And at first we thought they might have actually been here in the past and withdrawn. But it seems that for many years you have not had any cars. I'd like to hear from anybody who knows where there are old car clubs parking bays that we could refresh. And maybe you can talk to me about that afterwards. But we've been engaging with the car clubs to get them to come back into Ham.
All right, so talk about that afterwards, please. So I'd like to call in Mike Vile, please, to ask this question, sitting over there.
Thank you. Could you please outline how the recently adopted...
Can you hold the mic up to your mouth, please?
Sorry. Could you please outline how the recently adopted public space protection order will affect our open spaces in Ham and Petersham, and how the new regulations will be monitored and enforced?
Okay, a very important issue for us. I think Councillor Fleming, please.
Yes, and one I'm really very familiar with. Well, personally, I think they should be beneficial to the areas of Ham and Petersham, because we have two orders. In the first case, the public space order will protect certainly from antisocial behaviour, bonfires, barbecues, and in fact a lot of the open space really does suffer from barbecues. It leaves awful marks actually. And camping as well, overnight camping, because you see that on Hamlands as well. It also replaces controlled drinking orders, so it does mean that if people are, we want people to be able to enjoy our open spaces and have a picnic and a glass of wine, but if people in fact are abusing alcohol, and it can be removed from them. So then we have the separate one of the dog control orders of the PSPO. the main one being that it restricts the number of dogs that any person can walk to 4, and I think that certainly from quite a number of emails I received from residents in Ham, that would generally seem to have been quite a popular move. But you'll tell me that here tonight. But that does at least will help to protect the flora and fauna and the open spaces, and in fact be generally more friendly for people who want to enjoy walking around Ham lands and perhaps don't like dogs and can be intimidated by something like 6 dogs. So I think they should be fairly beneficial. As for enforcement, we'll be using our park guard teams and our own council enforcement officers to make sure that these new PSPOs are enforced.
Do we have any comments from the audience on this one? Do you want to come back in first, Mike?
No, thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That was quite fantastic. The only worry is, of course, that the main concern of all Ham residents is open spaces, which instead of dogs wandering about, you intend to build over.
No.
Do we have any comments from the audience on that? Yes, there's on there.
Thank you. Andre again, on the issue of the dog licensing. A couple of things that have dog walkers have raised with me, which I'm trying to get to the bottom of, is one, I believe that the professional dog walkers will only be licensed to actually access one park with their dogs, which I've been told is particularly, it's not good for dog welfare to be only able to go to the one park every single day. They get bored, therefore they will get destructive and disruptive. Is that correct? And the second one is that you can have 2 dog walkers who, you can have one dog walker with 4 dogs, and they can bring a friend with them, and they can have another 4 dogs, so you get the 8 dogs and maybe more. How are you going to stop people doing that to get around the idea of just of being licensed to have 6 dogs and prevent that?
Well, there's certainly on the licensing 3 in the 6 parks. It is actually so that we don't have an over-concentration, because otherwise if we allow more licences in these parks, we're just going to be back to the same problems again. So it is actually to restrict the numbers. With regards to dogs being bored by walking the same park, I can't actually say that I agree with that. I have 2 dogs myself, and I walk them in Richmond Park most days, and they don't get terribly bored by it because you don't have to do the same walk every day. And of course, the dog walkers can walk 4, so they don't, they're not stopped from walking. They can go and walk. They can go and walk 4 on Sheen Common or any of our other open spaces. So they're not really restricted. Yes, we do want to make sure that under the licences and the licensing, that we don't have more people walking together. But I mean, this is again an enforcement issue. But I would like to see people not walking 8 together. We would like to see that, and hope that the licensing and generally actually professional dog walkers, most of who are actually are professional about it. And very caring about their dogs, and the dogs that they have with them. So we do, I think most of them actually respect other users as well. So I would hope that they will take this on board and not walk more than 4 dogs and walk together.
We've got one more question before we come on to the hand close questions. Gabrielle Flannery. Is Gabrielle here? Oh. It's a shame, that's our first no-show. Okay, so I'm going to ask Maria Mendez, please. Maria. Okay, well, it could come up in the discussion. It's about parking provisions in the new Ham Close development, so I'm sure that will come up in the conversation. So, Serena Burrows, please. Yes, thank you very much, Serena. We're now moving into the open question time, so I'll be asking for questions from the audience on any topic. Serena.
I forgot to register, so I haven't got my question in front of me.
Have we got a copy?
But
Here we go, it's coming. It's coming, Serene.
Great, thanks. What grounds are there to explain the reintroduction of the plan of Amuga on Ham Close when the original suggestion for this received such universal refusal the first time? In fact, it was the original threat, I think, which galvanised the local community into forming groups to ensure that no building could take place without our agreement and proper consultation by the council.
I think you're going to have to say what Mooga is.
It's a multi-use games arena.
Okay, Councillor Fleming.
Well, there are no plans. In fact, the proposal, and it's out to consultation at the moment, so I think it's out until December the 14th. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, do respond to the consultation. But the proposal really is to take a very small part, I think it's 4% of the St Richard's playing field, to enable building on, if Ham Close, it goes to planning and is approved, but it would allow building to begin on that section so that no resident would have to be moved away from Ham Close. So that little bit, that little area, so that building could start on the western side, and the Mooga is in fact some way it's compensation for the school, and it will provide sporting facilities. There'd be no floodlighting. It would be mainly for the use of the school, with I think some community use at weekends. So it's nothing like the proposal that was there before. This is to give back to the school, to make sure in return we are working with the school, and this consultation is that they do actually benefit from this loss of this very small area of their playing field. So it isn't the same proposal as before. Thank you.
Okay, let's open it up for comments, questions on Ham Close. Oh, sorry, first of all, do you want to come back on that one?
No, I'm glad that it's not going to be like the original plan. And the only other thing I wanted to ask is, I don't understand how it's come about that Ham has gone from being designated as an area of deprivation to being voted the best village in London without any changes or improvements being made in the time between the designation and the vote.
Do you mind if I just leave that question? I think it'd be a good one to call later. I think that's an easy question. We've got a comment on Ham Close down here, please.
My name is Tinbergen. I live, Mrs. Tinbergen. I live also locally. I just wonder, it's not only the 4%, just a question. Is it correct that the kindergarten would go completely as well? And the whole development, Ham Close development, would come pretty much right up to the old people's home as well, so that the whole area, open area we have now, would go, not only 4% of the school playing fields. Is that correct?
Again, let's just take one or two more questions and then I'll get answers to them. Yes, at the back, please, keeping you on your feet.
I'm a resident of Ham Close, a tenant. Can we be assured by Councillor Fleming that no one will get moved out of the area whilst this phasing is going on? Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, I'll bring Councillor Fleming in to answer that question specifically. Thank you very much for that. It's important to hear all sides. Are there anything else people would like to raise at this point on Ham Close before I get responses to those two questions? Yes, down the front, please.
There is a further consultation time from 1st of December to 30th or 26th of January. So what is the purpose of it? I mean, as far as I think most of Ham is concerned, we've been consulted. We don't like the plan as proposed. So what is the purpose of this consultation? I mean, you know, consultation often is just a cop-out. People have their say and nothing alters. And when we were initially consulted, when the Prince's Trust was involved, we were given a series of options. Now, speaking personally, I think I accepted that there had to be an increase in the housing. But it's over 100%, and it's absolutely ridiculous, and everybody virtually is the same. Is it of the same mind? And we've had these consultations, we've had these plans. What was the purpose of them? That's what we would like to know.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fleming, do you want to deal with those 3 points, please?
Yes. Firstly, no. We would be providing the community centre and all of that area, so that won't be lost. Just to on the absolute assurance that nobody who wants to remain in Ham Close will be moved away from Ham Close. Absolutely, 100% assurance of that. We have been given that, and RHP have made, I think, made that absolutely clear that those the people who are living there who want to remain can, will be able to remain, and that is the purpose of that first building. So that if we can build on that section of land, first of all, it means that nobody will have to move away from Ham Close. They can move straight into their new homes, and then the next section, so it can be done in that. With regard to the consultations, in fact, we had a relatively positive response to the consultation that was carried out in the autumn of 2006. In the autumn of 2016, the consultation that's being carried out at the moment is just about the section of land, the section, it has to be carried out because it's taking the school, a section of school playing field, so under the terms of the Secretary of State, it has to be legislation, it has to be consulted on. That's the consultation that's being carried out at the moment. Obviously, before anything further goes forward, there would be another pre-planning, there'd be another consultation next year. So that's the position, and certainly views will be taken into account and work in the first time, because a lot of ideas were rejected, that then plans and ideas and concepts were changed, and particularly over the landscaping, and they received a very much sort of positive reaction last year. We had the consultation report. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure there's more of you. Do you want to come back in, and then I'm going to take that question there.
No, I just would like to know, is the nursery school staying, or does it have to go and make space for the development?
Do you want to just deal with that point quickly?
I think we will. I think I actually need to go and double check about the nursery school. And certainly, I know there've been conversations with the nursery school. I thought it was.
It's not the. No, I don't think it's that is the case. That's
no.
Not, well, we can.
But I'd like to double check on it, because I don't want to say something. Make a promise.
Can I say something here? Colin Pugh, husband of Galinda Tinberger, you keep mentioning 4% of the school playing fields, and that is a tiny portion of the extra bit of land which will be phase 1 in the building plan. It's that phase 1 which is absolutely essential if you are not to have to move people off the estate. Now, you seem to be trying to forget the kindergarten on Woodville Road. Is it or is it not staying? That's what we want to know. Or have you never seen the kindergarten on Woodville Road?
Is this on the kindergarten that you're... Yeah, so we take that question there, and then we'll come back. It's the same issue.
Name Natalia Yatsenka. I'm a leaseholder from Ham Close, and also a mother. So I went to this nursery on Woodville Road last week to find out, because initially I was planning to my son to go there. And the policy of nursery is that 60% or 70% of time children spend outside on a field that will be, will be redeveloped, so will be built inside. So what they told me that they will stay there, so as far as they know. But as a mother, I wouldn't send my son there anymore, because being outside, it means my son will be breathing, so will be, so they will move a little bit field for children, playing field for children. However, with their outdoor policy, it means that my son, for 5 or 6 years of redevelopment, will be breathing this, dust and pollution and noise and things like this. So this is the first, comment. Second comment on, everyone will stay on Ham Close who want it. In fact, I know 5 leaseholders who already moved out of Ham Close because they are constantly threatened by compulsory purchase order by Richmond Housing Partnership as well as council. In all communication, it is said that if you don't get to agreement, a CPO may be introduced. All area being prices. When I bought my flat in 2012, the difference between a flat, a leasehold flat somewhere else in Ham and Ham Close was about 10-15%. Since redevelopment was introduced and prices now about 40-50% less compared to everywhere else. So area was blinded. And so question is, why my home will be, with this all blinded the area, will be evaluated by a chartered surveyor, and if I want to move back to a new property, I have to, so new flats will be priced by a developer. And in your illustration, in a customer offer, which is completely unjust, the difference is 50%. So majority of the leaseholders are already retired. So for them to take additional mortgage is not an option. So when you're saying that all who wants to stay will stay, it's not true. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is this on the same issue? Still on Ham Close? Yeah, okay, and then I will bring Councillor Fleming back in.
Thank you. We've been discussing pollution. We've been discussing extra transport and cars. This development at Ham Close will introduce possibly a minimum of 100 additional cars. Ham and Petersham, named best village in London. It sounds as if you're about to destroy it. You certainly will. If you build this a number of council blocks on open land, schools are losing their playing fields. There's open land there where children play. The council itself have put in swings, roundabouts for children to play. Well done, you intend to demolish them. So much for Ham and Petersham being named a village, let alone the best village. It's in your hands, you tend to destroy it. Well done.
Okay.
Well, first of all, there are absolutely no plans to build on Ham Village Green. That is.
They were all over the last plan.
No, they weren't. Ham Village Green is very definitely not going to be built on, and it's absolutely clear in the last consultation that went down that that Ham Village Green would remain exactly as it is. There have been we've had many meetings with the Friends of Ham Village Green on that point.
Okay, I'll bring you back in a minute, I promise, okay? We'll bring you back in.
Specific points, I know there's been a meeting between RHP and the leaseholders, and those specific points you make are for RHP. I mean, I do need to make this absolutely clear that the council doesn't own those, but that it is our Richmond Housing Partnership. The council are not responsible for that. And so that is a matter for you to raise with RHP. And I was glad to hear that they did actually have a meeting with leaseholders, and I think they will be continuing that dialogue. So that really is one to be pursued with them.
And can I, thank you, and then can I just add, as Pamela said, a number of those things are questions. This is an RHP initiative and application. Many of these details are there, but we can help you and your local councillors with that dialogue with RHP. So I think there are some issues that we should be taking up together, and we can go to RHP and get clarity for you on a number of these issues. So that is our responsibility to do that. And then just before we come back, and I just come here, it is important. I do understand the sentiment of what you're saying. There is the case being made by RHP, which you can agree or not agree, that there is redevelopment that is needed. It needs to be financed. There is also, as I say, there is this pressure in London, which we are dealing with, and there's a wider issue, but there is this pressure in London for the need for more homes. And and it brings about very difficult issues about transport, and if you go too far, it changes the character of the area. I agree with you on the concerns about that. And as I say, we are pushing back to government and to the mayor to say you can't just give numbers and an overall target. You've got to consider everything that goes with it, and you've got to consider the character of London and the areas that we live in, and we want to preserve this beautiful place that we live. So we've got these competing factors that where people need more housing, our children need more housing, but we want to preserve the character. And so we've got to have a discussion about what is the best way for London to expand in the southeast. So I agree with you on those sentiments, and we are working together on that. And I've got the same thing in my local area with the Mortlake Brewery that is being developed, and there's real worry about the intensification of that and the fact that the mayor can come in and just pile on more. So we are facing these issues in different areas. It's not only Ham and Petersham, but we'll continue to work together. I understand what you're saying.
Can we go to the backs? You wanted to say something, yeah? From Ham Close?
All I'm concerned about is RHP had a plan. They were going to build on the green, move people in, and it'd be a lot quicker and cheaper than what you're planning to do now. You're going to take some land away from the children's playground to build rather than build on the green. I just don't understand why you can't build on the green first. I know some people have complained about it, but we live there. And that Ham Estate Green is not a village green, it's part of the estate. So why can't we just build on the green? It's part of the estate. Why can't we just build on the green, make it quicker for everyone to do that, and cheaper, so we can move in there and that'll be it.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got any other comments?
Yes,
Sorry, where am I?
Yes, I've walked in here really not familiar with the facts.
Sorry, I can't see where you are. Where
yeah,
are you?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't live in Ham Close, but I've walked in here not familiar with these facts. And the lady says here that she's got a property that will be valued at X, but if she wants to move back in, it's going to cost 2X. I mean, aren't we witnessing ethnic cleansing here of some kind? I mean, surely if someone lives in a flat there and they want to put an extra 100 flats in, then she should be given one of these new flats on a new flat for old, and not have to pay another 50%. I mean,
okay, thank you very much. One other comment, and then I'll again ask Councillor to respond. Any other comments? Yes, we have one here.
Who is the owner of RHP?
Okay, let's have some response, please, to these questions.
RHP is an independent housing trust. So a number of years ago, Richmond put out. So we are represented on it, but we don't have total control over it. But we've got a relationship with them. We've got an influence over them. But ultimately, they do make their own decisions.
Can I just point out about the building on Ham Village Green? This was actually one of the major points that came up in the consultation, And residents really did object to the village building on Ham Village Green. And as I say, we listened to the consultation, what people told us on the consultation. So I do understand what you're saying, because I know it was one of the things that people that was looked at, but there was overwhelming rejection of that.
Do we want to have another word about the issue of the resale of the
leaseholders' property? Any comment on that?
Well, I think, as I say, we can be taking that back with RHP. It really is for RHP to answer the detail on that.
Right.
We can help represent and have that discussion.
Thank you. There's a question here, please. We're still on Ham Close.
Yes.
Okay, we'll keep going.
You keep saying to get back to RHP. However, what as a leaseholders we refer it is compulsory purchase order, which RHP they can't issue it. So the reason they can put in our customer of a compulsory purchase order is which can be issued only by council, is probably by council agreement and committing to it. So if council from your hand, if you say that they can't use it in their communication material and their emails to their leaseholders, then it will be easier for us leaseholders to negotiate with them. But they constantly threaten us with a compulsory purchase order, which can be only issued by the council. Thank you.
I think we need to discuss with this with RHP. I think is the
Okay. Before we move on, does anybody want to say anything finally about Ham Close? It is a big issue locally. The forum has had a strong view on this as well, of course. So I've got two hands up, one down here, and then one at the back.
What is the control, if any, on the idea that Richmond Housing Partnership might sell property, that which is for sale, and it will be bought by people who buy to let? Because that's one of the things that makes a house purchase for young people these days so very difficult. Not just that the housing stock is not enough, but because a lot of people now have been encouraged to buy to let, and this takes the houses that might be bought by people off the market, at least for a number of years.
Okay. Can we get the question at the back, please? Right at the back, thank you.
Hi, my name's Mandy. I live on the Ham Close. I've done a project recently on the conditions that we live in Ham Close. The damp in the flats is awful, and people live with that, and the ill health that it causes, like pneumonia and asthma. So the flats are no longer fit for purpose. So whether you build 450 or 10, something needs to be done on Ham Close.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for that. And I think that is the driving factor. But also together with RHP's desire to have more affordable housing. Now they will have to come out and clarify exactly their balance on that. And there are a number of issues and wider issues with not only availability, but having the right people in the right homes, if that makes sense, and making it easier for people to move into the spaces that they want. And this is an issue we're grappling with on a wider basis. I agree, but it is for RHP to come back and give definites on what his proposal is for the balance of within the development.
But I would add that we do know that a proportion of them will be, and quite a large proportion will be, affordable housing or shared, or shared ownership. Because shared ownership is, of course, a good way for people to get on the housing ladder these days. It offers them an opportunity that perhaps otherwise they might not be able to afford.
It's RHP's mission.
And that's RHP. Yes, exactly.
Affordable is one of those words.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I say shared ownership, which is yeah.
I agree with you.
I agree.
We've done half an hour on Ham Close. I'm aware there may be other issues, but there is a hand up there. Can we take it, please? And then I'll actually bring Serena back in because she did have another question.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Adam Tucker and I'm the Project Director of Ham Close. So on one level it comes down to me. And I can answer some of the questions that have been raised here. One of the first things I want to say is that I think it's very easy for people who perhaps have a home to resist more homes being built. But if, like the resident said there, if you're living in a home with damp and you've got a very challenging housing situation or you haven't got a home at all, I think you might have a different view, and I just would ask people that live in homes to bear that in mind. I just say that. The other thing to say is that we are committed to producing genuine affordable housing, and what I mean by that is actual social housing for Ham. We've carried out some research using TPAS, which is a third party. It's the Tenant Participatory Advisory Service. They're not Richmond Housing Partnership, they're nothing to do with us. We asked them to analyse all of the regeneration schemes that are happening in London, and the simple facts are that there is more social housing being produced at Ham than any other regeneration in London but one. And in actual fact, Ham, in terms of the numbers of housing that is proposed, is seeking to roughly double density. Now I understand that is a lot more homes, and I understand the issues of transport, and believe me, if I could build cycle parking rather than car parking, I'd be very happy, because it's cheaper and it's better for the environment. So, that's my mission. But most other regeneration schemes in London triple density, and you can check this is facts, they triple density, and they only reproduce the same amount of social housing as there is before they start regeneration. Ham is entirely different than that, and I think it potentially could be a great success for this borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
I just wanted to clarify, I'm not living in Ham Close, but I'm immediately adjacent, so I live at 48 Woodville Road. It's very helpful, the project manager. I just think, and I entirely agree, either 8 million have to be spent to refurbish the blocks, but much better is redevelopment, and I entirely agree. They look awful, the blocks, but at the moment we face an overdevelopment, especially if you look at the number one reason and motivation for people to live here is green spaces. That's going. These blocks of flats have never fitted in the area. Now you want to build a higher density of blocks of flats. I wouldn't even object to that, but we live in a kind of cul-de-sac, in a loop. You can only get out in one or two ways, and we already have 2 cars per 2 people, families, Well, we are most of us, you see, or it's overcompensated by other people. There's the K5 bus route would be perfect, I think, to extend into Ham. What I don't like at the existing plans is you plan balconies to the front of Woodville Road. That means the new residents, have no privacy, and they look I look right onto them, and they look right into me. I think if you want to plan balconies, they have to go to the side. I don't like that there's no open space anymore. So.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll let you come back in. There's a question at the back. Point at the back.
I know people are objecting to the fact that there's going to be so much more building, so many more flats on Ham Close. If this is such a big worry to people, why don't RHP and the council sort out the people that are in homes, say 2 or 3 bedrooms, and live on their own? And we start sorting all that out, we won't have housing crisis, will we?
Okay, thank you. Adam, do you want to come back in?
So thank you. It's good to have some questions. On the balconies, you're right. The existing blocks that front Woodville are between 4 and 5 stories tall, as you'll realise. The new proposals will be much lower than that. They'll be 2 or maybe 3 stories. So from the surrounding community's point of view, Ham will look less big, because, you know, as I say, the properties on the edge are lower, and we've done that deliberately. It gets taller in the middle, away from what people see. So that's the first point. Anything that we do has to get planning permission, and we're very tightly controlled in terms of distance between one person's balcony and another person's balcony, and of course we will comply with everything that we need to, and probably, you know, my heart is to exceed from the statutory minimums, because I think that would be a cop-out. So there's that point too. The third point that was raised was about the green space. In actual fact, there is going to be a central corridor all the way down the site, which is runs from Ham Village Green right the way up to the Woodville Centre. So there will be a much, almost like a central park, in actual fact, running the whole way. So I haven't yet done analysis of the current green space to the new green space, but there is both what green space there is and the quality of that space. And I would hope that what we are re-providing in terms of the landscape will be significantly better quality than there is as well. And can I just pick up on an earlier point as well about the Woodville Centre? Yes, there is a proposal to take some land there. It is not beyond the wit of man for us to re-provide the nursery and provide space for the nursery, and that's something that we are very much up for listening. You know, I've got young children myself, and I know the importance of nurseries and outside space and play for them and that kind of stuff. And that's something that we're not just going to kind of ride roughshod over, and we will listen to people. And in fact, we have to listen to people as well. They've not been finalised yet, because we don't own that land. We own most of the land, but we don't own that bit. And I understand that there are discussions going on between London Borough of Richmond and the nursery themselves, and I've not been party to those as yet.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that we move on from Ham Close. We've got about 25 minutes left, and there may be other subjects in the room. But Serene, you're still here? Where are you? Yeah. So there was another question you asked. Shall I just read it? How come that Ham has gone from being designated an area of deprivation to being voted best village in London without any changes or improvements being made in the time between designation and the vote? Councillor Fleming, please.
Well, actually, areas of deprivation isn't a term that we have ever used about areas. It's maybe a governmental way described, but in fact, we've always been about improving areas, uplift. That's what people want. People want to live in uplift areas. They don't want to live in areas of deprivation. This was actually an award. This is actually an award. Was an award from London in Bloom, London in Bloom. For Ham being the best village, and I would actually just like to take this opportunity of congratulating everybody who was involved in it, because I think it's a fantastic achievement, and I do know how hard a lot of people work to get that award. So, you know, very, very, very well done. But no, we have actually gone about making improvements, and the library, I think, is a classic example of this. The library with the community room that's provided fantastic service with a facility for local people. And we will be look at other improvements. We worked actually with the Friends of Ham Village Green to improve the village green. The community market, whilst that's something that I know has been taken forward by the committee, but we've also worked with the council very closely to try to facilitate that. I think we've done a lot in the council to work, and we continue to work with Ham and with the forum.
It's a good question. It's a typical government term. That doesn't help anybody.
I will bring you in. Serene, do you want to say anything on that? No? Jeff is there, sitting in the middle, down the aisle.
Thank you. I'm chair of the Ham and Petersham Association, who organised entry for London in Bloom through our president, and I did the walk with the judge. One of the things they noticed about Ham and Petersham, because it's not just Ham, which is the best village in London, it's Ham and Petersham, was the enormous diversity of the area. So they did pick out Ham Village Green, the library, the excellent allotments on Great Court School. They picked out the other allotments as well as the avenues, Latchmere Brook, Petersham Woods, the Lockup, it's the whole area. And so it's not actually about who's got the most flowers and who's the prettiest. It's about lots of community engagement, which you see tonight. And it's about a really strong entry, which basically summed up, I thought, if you ever get a chance to read it, it's probably one of the most well-written pieces about Ham and Petersham you'll read, because it really summed up what Ham and Petersham is about, which is about a great community, really diverse and in a beautiful spot, which we're trying to preserve and keep special.
Very good. Jeff, is there somewhere we can get hold of what it was written? Is it on a website, on your website?
I'll put it on the Ham and Petersham Association website.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other questions on this issue? General, I suppose. Okay, well, let's open it up for anything else. Anybody want to raise? Yes, we've got a number of hands at the back. Should we take the gentleman who's closest to the front first? I will take the people behind as well.
Hello there.
Name, please.
Daniel Harrigan, local resident. One thing I've noticed, I've lived in the area pretty much my whole life, Richmond here and then down in Ham now. The road from Ham Common to Ham Gate, which started not that long ago, was always empty, no one ever thought to park there, is getting very, very, very busy and very dangerous. Can I propose that, especially weekends, weekdays not so bad, some sort of natural brakes be placed on the road so that if cars are going to park there to walk their dogs or go running in the park, that when you drive in through Ham Gate, people can see they've got a series of safe staging points that they can pull in, allow cars to come past, and then carry on. At the weekend, the road is half full now, and what's happening is people are panicking, they're driving very quickly down that, and there's going to be some accidents, I think. And it's left to its own devices because it's a sort of nice wilderness area. But it is now getting very, very, very busy, and I think maybe it needs a little bit of attention.
Thank you, that's a very clear question. Angela Buckwell, do you have to respond to that, please?
Yes, I must admit I've driven down that road many, many times, of course. I live just down the side of the park, but I haven't really considered it to be such a problem. But I'm very interested that you brought it up and you say that it is. So I will ask officers to look at it, and we'll see what we can do to come up with a scheme to implement some of that, if that remains the case. Our roads are getting more and more parked and up and crowded, of course, and roads that for years have never been a problem are becoming so. So we will look at it. I'll give you that assurance. We'll have a look at it.
Is this on this issue?
Yes.
Yes. Can we come down here to that issue, and then we will ask other contributions? Yeah, it's coming round.
I just want to say that I really wish to impress upon you the importance of that point that has just been made. It has been going on for a long time. It is getting worse and worse. For a long time, I have driven up and down that road and been getting more and more upset about the lack of attention to parking immediately outside Hamgate Avenue, and it's spreading further down. So I conclude by saying I think this is very important and you should look at it quickly.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, I think we've got a question at the back. Very much. Right at the back, please. It was first, and then there's another hand there.
Hello.
Name, please.
Jude Holmes, local resident. Our local post office has suffered 2 serious violent break-ins in the last few months, and I understand that the owners have to apply for planning permission to put up local shutters. I just hope that they don't have to jump through too many hoops to get this. There are metal shutters on the shops down Back Lane. Could I just have your views on this, please? I think it's really important. I just want to say I think it's really important that we do everything we can to facilitate the continuation of our local post office. And yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, very valuable. Councillor Seymour, will you comment on that, please?
I haven't seen this particular application come up, but I'll look out for it and I'll make sure it goes through as smoothly as possible.
That's good reassurance. Okay. We had a question there, and then I'll go over there first, please.
Thank you. Daniel Palethorpe again. My attention was drawn to an article in the Ham and Petersham magazine probably a few months ago about a proposed footbridge from Ham Street car park over to Twickenham side. And given the opportunity, I would object strongly to this, because one of the things I most treasure about Ham is its isolation, and I think it would be in danger of becoming a thoroughfare. Not to mention the foot ferry would disappear, and being I think the oldest foot ferry in London, and it contributes very much to the character of the area. So I'm just wondering what's happened to that proposal, hoping it's gone away.
Councillor Buckwell is going to comment on that.
Yeah, there have been various proposals by various groups for bridges, footbridges, cycle bridges, etc. across the river at various points, all the way through from Wandsworth through to Kingston. And what we are doing is right across the borough, we are looking at roads in terms of corridors and residential areas in terms of areas, and we're studying each of those in terms of what the needs are and what the future might require. One of the corridors is the river itself, and as part of that study we will look at whether bridges are required, but it is a long shot. I don't think it's something that needs worrying anybody in the short term. The bridges are expensive. The sort of bridge that you've just described is 12 to 15 million pounds, and someone would have to cough up that sort of money even to start a project like that. But they are being looked at. Another bridge that has been put forward is from Kew across to Brentford. That's an old chestnut that's been around for a long time. So I won't say that they're not being looked at, they are. But I think it's quite a long shot that such a bridge will materialise in the short term.
But look, I would add that's, and we do need to look long term. So that's a community discussion. That's a neighbourhood discussion to have. And if it's not wanted, that's very easy. If it is wanted overall, then whether it's that or something else, we can look at how to do it. But it's certainly not an imminent project that way.
Okay, there was a hand. Take this one first, please. Okay. And then we'll just in the middle, halfway back on the right.
Hello, my name's Jill Lamb. I'm a resident of Lock Road, and I was delighted in June to find out that Lock Road had been successful in the lottery of pavement repairs. Can I just ask when it's likely to be done, as we're approaching December and nothing's happened yet?
Yep. Councillor Butler.
Well, if it was successful in the recent exercise, and I believe you're right it was, you should hear the work will start fairly quickly from now, fairly soon, because it will have to be done in this financial year. I'll try and find out, and if you speak with me afterwards, I'll try and find out a date for you.
Okay, we have a question right at the back there, please.
Hi, my name is Peter Andrew Arthur. I live in Hampstead. It's about electric cars and charging points. Last year there was a proposal for some positions for charging outside the library. That seemed to disappear, subsequently came back. I'm not quite sure whether it's been improved or not, if somebody could clarify that. But generally, what is the strategy for electric car points going forward? And why are they being put in the street and using up parking spaces, which could be absolutely empty for 90% of the time, rather than being concentrated on grounds that are not presently used or within the forecourts or garages, etc.?
Councillor Buckwell.
Yeah, I can. I can tell you a little bit about that. We are planning a network of on-street charging points across the borough, and we've got only about 12 in so far, another 10 to go in this month. And there are two types that we're looking at. One is based upon the lamp standard columns that we've got, and we won some funding from London councils for 160 of those to go in across the borough. The thing is that using the lamp standards, the rate of charge is fairly slow. It's almost like an overnight trickle charge. So for electric car users, that's very convenient for overnight parking, but it's not so convenient for someone who wants a faster charge during the day. So we're also looking at some standalone charge points which double the capacity, which will charge most electric vehicles in about 5 hours, and we're looking at 70 of those in groups of 3 across the borough. And that's probably one of the ones that you're referring to. And if you want to talk to me afterwards, we can talk about the actual position of the thing. But electric vehicles are growing in number in the borough quite quickly. Those who don't have off-street parking and can put their own charge points in are looking for these to be put into place. Shell garages are putting them in faster chargers into their garages across the borough. TfL, Transport for London, want us to consider a number of sited fast charge points for taxis and possibly delivery vehicles when they come on the scene. You may have seen on the television just the other night that Tesla have brought out this superb lorry, huge vehicle, which is electric. That's going to be fun to try and get that around some of our roads, but never mind. So the way this is going is that the electric vehicles are coming in large numbers. The motor manufacturers are producing some very nice vehicles now. It's gone beyond the sort of old milk floats stage or invalid carriage that we knew in the 50s. Some of the modern cars are really very nice indeed. The ranges are increasing rapidly from 100, 150 miles to 300 miles. The battery technology is moving on a pace. In London we have a problem with air quality, and whereas of course it does depend upon the production of clean electricity. It's a way of moving forward and maintaining transport availability, and at the same time cut down on particularly the NOx pollution across London. So that is the way it's moving forward. As for taking up car parking spaces, yes, this does happen. We've put in for planning permission for a number of these standalone systems, and residents complain about the loss of car parking bays, because of course each of the standalones does take up a car parking bay. But as the number of vehicles increases on our roads, then you're going to get to a tipping point at some stage where people are going to be demanding that car parking bays are given up to electric vehicles. It's the way it's going. It is the future. It's coming upon us very rapidly. We're going to see some very big changes on our high street, and that is one of them.
Okay, over here please, there's a question.
My name's Claire Mackenzie. I'm from the Ham and Petersham Association. My question is about the Russell School. The beauty of the Russell School was the fantastic natural environment. The wildlife garden, orchard and allotments have been destroyed. The school's planning permission stated that landscape plans should have been submitted 18 months ago. When will the council engage the community and get a grip on this project?
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Who's going to take this? Susan.
Shall I just kick?
Yeah.
This is obviously something where whenever we look at any schools we want to engage the community, and I am aware that there's been some issues around the landscaping and making sure that things are done to make sure that outside the school area, and I did actually ask for some information on this beforehand, and I'm told that they will engage with you as much as they can to make sure that the properties that are around the school aren't overlooked and that your views and so on are protected. So I think this is an ongoing thing, and I think I'm very happy to speak with you afterwards, see if there's anything that I can do to make sure that between the school and the planners and local residents, we get the best possible solution to make sure that the school runs, but also that you're not impacted on negatively, because it's always an issue when there's a new school or any changes, that we get that balance between the school and local residents, and it's something that I'm very keen to do, something I'm doing in my own ward, and I'd be very happy to do with you here as well.
Do you want to come back on that? Do you want to say something else?
The point isn't actually about the local residents, it's about the children's playing facilities which have been destroyed. You've destroyed the wildlife area which was opened by Sir David Attenborough. The children's allotment and their orchard have all been destroyed with this badly managed project. And I want to know if these features are going to be reinstated. It's actually the children who are suffering on that side. The residents have got separate issues.
Okay, well I certainly wouldn't want any child to suffer. The idea of all of the developments we do for schools is to make children's lives better. So I will take that away. It's not something that I'm aware of, but I will speak to the school and I will go back and make sure that anything that has been done that needs to be put right is done. And as I say, I'm very happy to take this up with you separately afterwards.
But there have been issues around the rebuilding there, absolutely.
It is something that I've actually set up a system, and in fact I've got a meeting later this week where we're looking at all of the developments, all of the school developments, and making sure that I know exactly what's going on with all of them. So actually you caught me a day ahead of when I have the meeting. Russell is one of the schools that we'll be discussing, so I will make a point of putting that on the agenda tomorrow. And if you want to give me your email, I'm very happy to follow up afterwards.
Okay, I think we've got time for 2 more questions. I think there was a hand here and there's a hand there, so 2 more questions and then we'll wind the evening up.
Hello, I'm Emily Palethorpe. I'm a resident in Ham. As several people have mentioned this evening, very disparagingly, the roadworks on the Petersham Road. And I'm sure we've all experienced waiting for an hour in traffic queues only to drive by and see that nothing is happening. It's just the traffic lights holding up all these people trying to get home to their children. Please, please, could the lights only be turned on when necessary? It's, there was, quite recently, it seemed a week that I drove by them and nothing was happening. And it's a huge waste of so many people's time. Could somebody please take responsibility for making sure that the lights are only on when the necessary work is happening?
Pollution as well. Do you want to comment on this, Councillor?
Well, yes, it's an ongoing problem. And our role in the council, of course, is to oversee these roadworks by utilities. When a building requires water, electricity, gas, etc., it has to have it by law. We can't stop a utility company coming along and digging up the road and putting in a new gas line, because the facility has to be there. What we can do, and what we do, is through the London licensing agreement, we can have a say in the programme and when it will start and when it will stop. And we do, and officers are very good at this. They sit down with the utility companies and they quiz them, they go through their plans. Can it be done during holiday time rather than school time, etc.? And that's why you tend to see a lot of roadworks over half terms and this sort of thing done outside school periods. So we have influence, but we don't have total control. And if the road is up, it doesn't matter whether if it's up and the excavation is there, and obviously it's barriered off, and the road is reduced to one lane. It doesn't matter if they're working or not. That then the traffic lights will have to be on to control the traffic passing those roadworks. It's very frustrating, I know, when you pass and you see nobody working there, and that sadly does happen for a number of reasons. And it's a constant battle that our officers have with the utility companies over that very issue, because we realise how frustrating it is for everybody, not least our own officers who have to go and push hard for the works to be completed, or to be at least to be seen to be done. You had that unfortunate incident outside the Darrell School in Petersham. Sorry, Russell School, sorry, Darrell School. I've been working on Darrell School today over the other side of the Russell School, whereby they came along to put a connection in and then left it. There's been a lot said about that, and it has resulted in the contractor who was working for the utility company being banned from all further work from this borough. So we do take action. We fine them. You may remember all the work that was done on the Queen's Road during the summer. That was another battle. It was meant to last from April until the end of June. It didn't finish until September, and we fined them about £50,000 during that time. So we do take action, and the action that we can do, but it has to be remembered that if buildings require essential utilities, they have to have them.
Could I just quickly add to that? Sorry, Brian, because again, it's another one that Peter and I talked about quite. And like you, nothing drives me crazier than going by roadworks, holding everybody up, and nobody's there. So it's both trying to enforce what we can, but we also push them to try to communicate better, at least explain and set expectations, so you know what's happening, and so that's an element of it too.
Okay, we got one final question in the middle here, on the left, please.
I thought the lights were just to park their vans up.
Can I just say thank you very much for coming out to Ham and Petersham tonight. It's been great to see Richmond Council. A lot of us locally have been rather upset that one very old cottage in the Ham Common Conservation Area was recently demolished without permission. It was mentioned in Pesna. It should never have been demolished. There's a strong feeling that a lot of people in Richmond Council struggle to know where Ham and Petersham is and probably wouldn't even know about that particular cottage. Now you're merging services at Wandsworth. How can you guarantee the feeling of alienation that sometimes Ham and Petersham feel won't get worse?
So we're talking about the cottage on Ham Parade.
Yeah, talking about the Upper Ham Road, but it's about...
So it's about the bigger issue.
It's about the bigger issue to make sure Ham and Petersham doesn't get forgotten.
Yeah, so absolutely. So that is our responsibility and with councillors. So what the cooperation with Wandsworth, which we call the shared staffing arrangement, is shared staff across both boroughs, so that they're serving both boroughs, but serving them in a way that really you shouldn't see the difference. There are always discussions about resources, and we can talk about that. But Richmond needs, and Ham and Petersham need to be served against its own character, and Richmond wider, and its own set of policies. And we will have times in the future, for example, where at the moment across Richmond and Wandsworth, we've got the same party in control. There will be times when, at some point in the future, when they are different. And just as staff, when they're just serving Richmond, there are very different areas in Richmond, which, as you said, Ham and Petersham is a very unique area of the borough. So in the same way that they would have to prioritise things differently within the borough, they would have to do that across Wandsworth and Richmond boroughs. But it is our responsibility as councillors leading the council to make sure that the policies and the character of the area continue to be served, and if they're not, it comes through us.
Councillor Hodgins, have you enjoyed your visit to Ham and Petersham?
I have. As always, I've enjoyed my visit here. And thank you very much for everybody coming out today.
So can I thank all the councillors, officers, and the representative from RHP for coming along tonight. And if you want to talk to Neighbourhood Forum members, they've all got the orange badge on. Please ask them. Justine?
I'd just like to thank Brian for
last word. Thank you very much for coming to this meeting. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.